Coming up, streak after streak after streak after streak comes to an end. Find out how the new kids in town cut down some of the region's seemingly unbeatable teams.
And you won't be able to tell by the box score, but this guy is one of the best football players around. We take you up close with Minot and future Bison baller, Braydon Lund.
And we'll take a close look at some of the top games on this week's slate and make our picks for the best of the best. All that and more coming up on Varsity Sports. And how is everybody doing? Alongside Jason Handera, I am Jay Elson. This is Varsity Sports. Jason, what a week in high school football.
I don't remember a week with so many upsets. I mean, I'm talking big upsets in the same week early in the season. You know, we're getting close to halfway point. We're going to really find out a lot about these teams as we enter the second half after this one.
Well, let's get started tonight then with a quick look back at that week that was. In our weekly rewind, we're going to kick it off at the President's Bowl, where two long winning streaks loomed large. In the opener, Yankton entered with 13 straight victories, but that didn't seem to impress Washington quarterback Jack Skellhouse. He was coming off a rough night against Lincoln the week before, but he bounced back in a big way. Skellhouse accounted for 6 total touchdowns, 4 through the air, 2 on the ground, to lead the Warriors to a 43-19 rout of the Bucks. Yankton's Sheldon Gant ran for 115 yards and 2 scores in the loss, but the Washington defense contained the rest of that Bucks attack, holding it to just 123 total yards.
The guys making big plays. Pretty happy with their guys right now.
The night didn't get off on the right foot for the Lincoln Patriots, and the Rough Riders took it from there. Roosevelt piled up 42 straight points to open the contest and ended Lincoln's 24-game win streak by the final of 49-7. Jet Thune found 3 different receivers for touchdowns and took 2 in by himself as the Riders improved to 3-0 on the season.
Rough Riders taking a little revenge out on Lincoln there. Early on, it looked like O'Gorman and Brandon Valley might be a defensive battle, but the Knights' offense came alive in the second quarter behind quarterback Luke Fritz. The senior signal caller ran for 2 touchdowns. He also threw for a score, and the defense kept the Lynx in check all night. O'Gorman wins at 28-14 to improve to 2-1 on the year.
It's always to get that W. You're always getting better as it goes, and tonight, was a big one. We needed it.
The quarterbacks lived up to the spotlight in the capital city on Friday night. Harrisburg's Kane Kittleson ran in 3 touchdowns, while Pierre's Brevin Kaiser threw for 3 touchdowns. But the difference was the Govs' takeaways late in the game. Zach Strand hauled in 2 interceptions to assure Pierre the victory, 30-23. They hand the Tigers their first defeat of the season.
Our fans are great. It was all I can say is a lot of fun.
Getting that win, especially at home, is really big for us. We just got to keep going and just got to get ready for the next one.
Well, Jason, you remember Brookings suffered through a couple narrow defeats to open the year. Well, there would not be a third. The Bobcats shot out to a comfortable 47-0 lead behind Gerald Maxwell, who turned out 229 yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. Brookings picks up its first win of the year in dominating fashion, 54-13, the final.
Dominating, to say the least. Well, it was a challenge between the 2 top teams in Class 11A, but in the second half it was clear that Madison was the team with more playmakers. Mitch Hansen sparked the offense with a pair of big passing plays to set up this 17-yard rushing touchdown. After that, Madison took control and hung on for a 28-7 win at home.
Big boys up front gave me a good hole, and just finding the holes and running hard. It gives us a lot of momentum, but 1 week at a time. We got Lennox next week. They're a good team, so got to have a good practice this week, and we got to get ready for them.
Sioux Falls Christian is quickly becoming the talk of Class 11A. The Chargers put up another impressive performance on Friday, rolling up big yards on the ground and supplementing that nicely with the pass. The Chargers rout the Watchdogs 48-13 to go to 3-0.
Beersford's a great team. Last year they really took it to us, so we really wanted to come out here and take it to them like they did to us. But they're a great team. We had a tough road to get there, but we worked hard, and we've worked really hard as a team for this time, and we were ready.
Del Rapids struck first with Sam White's 76-yard touchdown, but the Mustangs ate up the clock and held on for a 12-7 win against the Del Rapids Warriors. The Mustangs now advance to 3-0 on the season.
All right, Jason, let's take a look now at some 9-man action from across the state on Friday night, and a couple of scores that stand out. How about that 62-54 game between Bonham and Gregory in overtime.
Yeah, that one came down to a couple sacks at the end of the game by Chase Corton. But you see some of these impressive 9-man teams, we don't give a lot of time on the air, but they are very important games, and you see a lot of great performances out there.
Del Rapids St. Mary knocks off DeSmet, the team that a lot of people had number 1 in Class 9B.
Yeah, that was a great back-and-forth game.
They go on the road to get that win. Somebody called that upset. Anyway, we're going to start something new this week. We're going to hand out one varsity game ball in North and South Dakota. And the first one in South Dakota anyway goes to Sioux Falls, Washington quarterback Jack Skellhouse.
Yeah,
well deserved.
He definitely deserves it. One of the best games he's had as a quarterback in high school. Skellhouse was 11 of 17 for 201 yards, 4 touchdowns passing, and ran another 2 in.
We know we're a solid team, but hopefully these guys realize that we're a force to be reckoned with, and we're having fun playing football.
All right, here's a look now at some of the other nominees from last week. Honorable mention, if you will. Who stands out here for you, Jason?
Well, you look right at the top of this list, and that Del Rapids St. Mary game against DeSmet had a lot of big performers. But look at the 10 receptions for Adam Augenbaugh, 123 yards, and hauled in 3 catches. Great job at the 9-man level.
Absolutely. All right, well, last week's action in North Dakota featured a couple of huge upsets, in fact, and we're going to take a look back at those when we come back.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
And welcome back. Well, time to hit the rewind button on all the North Dakota action from last week now. We're going to lead off with an early game at the Bismarck Community Bowl. It featured a pair of unbeaten teams. Dickinson in this game faced a 13-0 fourth-quarter deficit against Bismarck High, but the Midgets found some rhythm late. Boy, did they ever. Quarterback Sean Steffen and receiver Michael McChesney helped fuel a furious rally that featured 22 points in a span of about 5 minutes. They capped it off with this Tyrell Harris 2-point conversion. That gave them a 22-21 lead, and that is how the game would end. Dickinson stuns Bismarck, handing the Demons their first regular season loss since 2011.
First off, I thought our guys played hard, asked them to have perfect effort all night, and they did that. Got off to a slow start. Our defense kept us in the game, kept the score close. Fourth quarter, we were finally able to break some things on offense. We made enough plays to win, and it's great to get off to a good start in the West region, especially to beat a great team like Bismarck High, and I'm just really proud of our guys.
Well, if that wasn't a big enough upset, we had another one just west of town where Mandan beat Century for the first time since 2006. Jake Carlson led the attack on the ground with this 56-yard touchdown. Mandan added a fourth-quarter safety to put them up by 9 points, and they hold on for a 16-14 win.
The 2 West Fargo schools squared off at Cheyenne's new stadium for the first time on Friday, but it was the Packers who had all the fun. Chase Tyken ran for 141 yards and 4 touchdowns to lead West Fargo to their first win of the season, 30-0 score.
And the Bruins were faced with their second big fourth-quarter deficit in the last 3 weeks, and once again, they found a way to win. Fargo South beat Grand Forks Red River 36-27 with 29 points in that final quarter. Gus Siaway ran for 185 yards and 3 touchdowns as the Bruins advanced to 2-1 on the year.
Beulah scored the second big upset in the Community Bowl in a matter of hours Friday as they knocked off top-ranked and 2-time defending champion St. Mary's 20-13. Running back Corey Alt had a huge impact on the game. He caught 8 passes for 180 yards and a touchdown, then sealed the win with an interception in the end zone.
They got a few breaks and things where in the past the wheels would have fallen off for us. We would have gotten down, but we just kept digging, kept playing hard. So I like the maturity we showed. I like the resolve we had. We talked about putting it all, like every team does, putting it all on the field. We said, no reserves and we're done.
For the second week in a row, Shiloh Christian faced an unbeaten team, and for the second week in a row, they handled the challenge with ease. Shiloh beat Strasburg-Zeeland 52-24. The Skyhawks won last week with almost an exclusive run attack. This week, they showed off their versatility with 5 first-half passing touchdowns. Shiloh now heads to Linton next week for another undefeated challenge.
Getting tricky with that play calling. Speaking of Linton HMB, they flexed their muscles against Kidder County, winning 30-8. After a scoreless first quarter, the Lions' Chase Sheely finds Jaden Benz in the corner of the end zone. Jordan Jolm ran for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns. and they now prepare for that big game against Shiloh Christian. Well, Jason, it's time now to hand out our varsity game ball for North Dakota. Who gets it?
Well, I'm going to go with the quarterback of Shiloh Christian, Zach Martin. 11 of 16, very efficient passing for 247 yards and 6 touchdowns, and it was no fluke. They played against a really tough team in Strasburg, Zeeland, so you got to give credit to Zach.
Well, Martin gets the honor, but there's some other guys that deserve some recognition for some pretty impressive nights. But how about Corey Alt? We just talked about him, 180 yards receiving, 8 catches, a touchdown, and that game-sealing interception in the end zone as Beulah knocks off St. Mary.
Definitely should take a lot of responsibility for that big win.
Absolutely. Well, coming up, Jandy and I are going to offer up our picks for some of this week's biggest games. But first, we're going to introduce you to a two-way star from Minot that's very much looking forward to his future in Fargo.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
There's a big man on Minot's Magic City campus that stands out and above almost everyone. At 6'4", 230 pounds, Braydon Lund's frame speaks for itself. Jason joins us now with more on the Magi's two-way star.
Well, thanks, Jay. Braydon Lund. He is one of the best two-sport athletes in the state of North Dakota. Last season, he averaged nearly a double-double on the hard court and led his team to a state championship. And while it's a little harder to quantify his impact on the football field, opponents definitely feel his presence. If you ask Braydon Lund what makes him so good, it might take you a while to get him to talk about himself. But we tried, and we finally got this answer.
Big weigh a lot. I think myself strong, but I also consider myself humble, and I have great teammates that help me through all of it. So it makes the journey a whole lot easier.
His description doesn't do himself justice. He's an elite athlete who excels at football and basketball. But as much as he enjoys the hard court, Braydon Lund never really gave playing at the college level a serious thought. That's because he's been chasing his dream to play college football at the highest level. This summer, he realized that dream after a trip to Fargo when he verbally committed to play for North Dakota State. He said it wasn't a tough decision.
My mom and I felt comfortable there. Talking to the coaches, they made me feel comfortable right off the bat. They went to a summer camp there, and this intensity. It was fun. I loved competing for them. It was just Coach Roll, Coach Kane, Kleiman's a good coach, Hedberg, all of them great guys, and made my decision pretty easy.
His outstanding play earned him all-state honors as a junior last season, but it was his athleticism and his size that made scouts start to drool. Braydon has started on the defensive line since he was a sophomore and added tight end to the mix last year. But he's not concerned what position he'll play at the next level.
I love playing football. I'm not going to lie. Doesn't matter as long as I get on the field. I like catching the ball, I like blocking, I like running, but I just as much like hitting people and tackling too, so it's all around fun.
Braydon brings a lot on both sides of the ball. He's a 3-year starter on defense and truly a big target that we don't always keep it inside at tight end. We split him out and try to create some matchup problems.
So far, Minot is out of the gates with an unbeaten mark. They're looking for big things after coming up just one game short last season.
Expect us to be physical, strong, fast, but overall expect us to get better day by day. Expect us to take small steps forward for that big goal towards the end.
All right, let's take a look at the measurables now, Jason, and they are impressive to say the least.
Yeah, he was just the third verbal commitment for the Bison in the class of 2016, and it's because of that speed. Look at that, 4.47 in the 40. He went to the camp at North Dakota State this summer, and they put him on defense a little bit more. They thought maybe he would be a college tight end, but he really shined on defense, so I wouldn't be surprised to see him lining up on defense in college.
Yeah, very well could happen. All right, well, good stuff. We've recapped the week that was, and when we come back, we're going to take a closer look at the week that will be. Our Varsity Sports preview coming up next.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
Hey, welcome back to Varsity Sports. Again, alongside Jason Andera, I am Jay Elson. Well, we always spend a lot of time at the beginning of the show, Jason, looking back at the week that was in high school football in North and South Dakota. Now's the time where we get to prime it up for another week and another episode of Varsity Sports Live, which is coming up here on Midco Sports Network with Jason and Tom Neiman on Friday night at 10:30. Lots of highlights and analysis from this week's games in North and South Dakota. But Jason, as you look down this slate here in the state of South Dakota anyway, what interests you?
Well, here are some of the big games that we're going to try to get a camera to for Varsity Sports Live. And a couple that are a little off the beaten path are some of the smaller schools. I'd like to see what Lennox is made of. They came out last week and had a really good game against Canton. They're 3-0 in the season, but now they got to play the big boys. Madison is the real deal. So will Lennox beat Madison? Probably not, but how close will they play them? How tough can they hang with them? That's a big question for me.
And it's good to see Lennox playing well again because they've had some down years here. You know, traditionally they had been a pretty good football program, and they went through some lean times, and now they're kind of getting back on track, so that's a credit to that coaching staff.
I want to know what you think about some of the big school games. We've got a big one here in Sioux Falls.
Yeah. I think O'Gorman and Washington I'm really interested in because to this point in the season, the biggest games for those two programs, O'Gorman against Roosevelt and Washington against Lincoln, both of those teams made costly mistakes that really contributed to losses for them. So who's going to play the cleanest game? Because I think the winner of this game is going to dictate who the rest of us look at as the second best team in Class 11 AAA. So I'm really interested to see how that plays out.
And it's almost been a given that those teams are kind of semifinal type teams. So which of those teams is going to pull ahead and be a dome contender?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's move into North Dakota now. Century really needs to rebound from that 16-14 loss to Mandan, but to do it, they're going to have to go on the road and knock off the top-ranked team in the state.
You know, only a couple teams left in AAA right now with unblemished records. Minot, the most legitimate out of all of them so far, have played really solid ball, just like I thought they would, but Century is no slouch, and they have a few problems. They haven't put up a huge amount of points over the first 3 weeks, but their defense has played very solid, and Adam Geiger has done a great job filling in at quarterback. This one's going to be tight.
That Mandan-Dickinson game is real interesting now, given what happened last week.
Oh, this is going to be a huge game. We'll talk more about this one in the picks, too, but two up-and-coming teams that have really surfaced, I don't know if out of nowhere, because we knew they'd be all right, but they're looking like elite teams right now.
Yeah, Mandan's a second-half collapse away from being undefeated. You remember they lost to Fargo South in week one, and it looked like they had that game there and had that first ever win over Fargo South in their grasp and just couldn't complete it. But they're getting it clicking now. The Braves are playing some good football.
Yeah, that is going to be a fun one to watch, and one that I'm really curious about. Who thought at the beginning of the year this game, West Fargo at Grand Forks Red River, would be a combined record of 1 win and 5 losses?
Right.
Well, I mean, if you look at West Fargo's schedule, I think it's pretty legitimate. Their 2 losses were really tough losses. One of them, really a special teams breakdown that lost to Bismarck. And I think West Fargo is going to establish themselves as one of the best teams in the state. But can Grand Forks Red River bounce back? Their defense has been nothing. It's been nothing, really. They've given up a ton of points, the most points of any team in the EDC to this point. So they really got to get things corrected on the defensive side of the ball. We know they've got some players back there with Zach Kuntz and company, but they've got to keep it all together, not giving up that big play.
And the most interesting matchup of the small schools, certainly that Shiloh Christian Linton HMB matchup.
Yeah, Region 3 has been crazy. There's a lot of great teams in that region right now.
That's a tough 3-week stretch that they've endured, but they've handled it very, very well to this point. All right, that is a look at this week's slate, but stay tuned. We're going to wrap things up with another round of Pigskin Pick'em. That's coming up right after this.
Varsity Sports on Midco Sports Network is presented by Mitchell Technical Institute and Shields.
And welcome back. Well, we're going to wrap things up as we do every week with another round of Pigskin Pick'em. And, man, things just not going well for me.
It always starts a little slow for you, Jay, but we know you pick it up, and by the end of the year, it's a nail-biter.
It is. We both did nail our upset picks last week. Remember, those are with 2. The head-to-head matchups, those are each worth 1. That's how the points work out there. We'll see if we can do a little catching up this week.
All right, see what happens.
We're going to start in 11 AAA in South Dakota, the intercity matchup between O'Gorman and Washington.
2 teams that could be title contenders. This will tell us a lot, but I think both quarterbacks coming off great performances, but I trust Luke Fritsch a little bit more in this one.
Yeah, I do too. And we talked a little bit earlier about I think the difference is going to be who's going to play the cleanest. I trust Luke Fritsch a little bit more maybe in this situation, although I could see this game going either way. I am going to pick the Knights in this one. Sioux Valley at Sioux Falls Christian. I'm not sure we were prepared to see this be a battle of undefeated teams.
Sioux Falls Christian's gone through a very tough schedule and really dominated each of their first 3 games. Sioux Valley brings a nice rushing attack with Matt Larson, Brock Swartos, almost 400 yards in just their 2 games. But I think that it ends right here. I think the Chargers win.
Yeah, Chargers have been rolling, and this is a program that's pretty young in this whole varsity football thing. But man, and we knew they were going to be better. I'm not sure we knew they were going to be this much better. Keegan Van Egdom looks like a special player. I think he's got another big night in him this week. I like the Chargers as well. Shiloh Christian at Linton HMB.
Shiloh Christian's job number 1, stop Jordan Holm. If they can do that, they can stop Linton and the Lions. Great balanced attack for Shiloh Christian. I take them on the road.
3rd straight week that Shiloh Christian is going to be facing off with an undefeated team. The first 2 of those did not go well for their opponents. I like the Skyhawks as well in this one, although being on the road this time at Linton HFB, maybe that narrows the gap just a little bit, but I still think Shiloh Christian gets the win here. Mandan at Dickinson.
You take out that one bad quarter for Mandan against Fargo South, and they're the undefeated team that looks really good. I think they have enough firepower on offense to get this thing done.
Tough for me not to go to with Dickinson here. They're the ones that have figured out how to beat Bismarck High in the regular season. Nobody else has done that since 2011. And while that's an emotional win, and sometimes you have a letdown coming off a game like that, they're at home. I'm going to give it to the Midgets. I like them to get the win here. All right, finally now, quickly, upset picks.
Canton's just 1-2 on the year, but they're a strong team. They take out Tri-Valley.
I like Millbank over Groton area. Millbank's been playing some pretty good football, coming off a close loss to Aberdeen Roncalli, which some consider to be one of the top teams in the state. But I think Millbank gets it done over the Tigers in this one. All right, that is going to do it for us for this week. For Jason Andera, I'm Jay Elson. Remember to bring it back here once again, Friday night, Varsity Sports Live, starting at 10:30.